So the only way to see what you're doing when you're doing these preps is to use the mirror. You can look down this way, but to see the clearances, you've got to be checking with the mirror. Okay. And so we really want to make sure that the fit between our prep and the opposing tooth is perfect. That has a lot to do with the vertical angle, but it also has to do with where we put the anatomy. So there should be a good groove right here. So see the opposing cusp? That's telling you to put a groove here.
Okay.
Not here. It's not telling you to put a groove here. It's telling you to put it right there. Okay? So that would be more like right there. So that's where the groove should be on your A plane, and then likewise, you almost got one here, but you don't have the right vertical angle. So the A plane's angled down this way, the B plane is angled this way, but everything you have is...
Can you show me the A plane again, sir, please?
Sure. So it's going to be angled something like this. Okay, but you can take the angle from the opposing tooth right here. So if you look in the monitor, you can see that I'm getting this vertical angle here. That's what I'm matching. I'm matching the vertical angle of your prep to the opposing tooth right here. Only using the mirror can you see exactly how that's working. Only using the mirror can you see that you got these grooves in the right place. And then only using the mirror can you check the clearance every place all the way along here. But this is what we're going to be tending to do. All the way around into the embrasure, all the way around here into that groove, rounded surface at the right vertical angle, and then rounded between this groove, and then from here up to the embrasure here. But you've got to maintain those grooves really well, okay? Okay, so, oops, let me get the mannequin tightened up again. Okay, so vertical angle, huge, huge. You got to get it right. Getting these grooves in the right place, huge. Got to get them right. Then you can get the A plane. So the A plane should be coming up like this, and down here, and then up here, and down here. Okay, but you've got way over reduced in this area and way over reduced in this area here, obviously. Now when you do the B plane, we take the vertical angle from the adjacent tooth like this, or like this, but what you did is almost exactly horizontal. And we want to put a groove, a ridge right here. You have a groove where there should be a ridge. Now again, on the drawing on the board, I drew a ridge here, didn't I? Okay, but you're doing something here. This should be where the facial groove is, but you're leaving a ridge there. So point the burr in the right direction, get the right vertical angle, and then follow the central groove down right next to the adjacent tooth. Get as close as you can to the adjacent tooth. Then come down here and bring the end of the burr out the groove. But again, make a groove. Flat plane here to the marginal ridge, flat plane here, out the groove. Now it's way over reduced because your initial was way too horizontal, but at least we're getting the anatomy now that would have given you the perfect clearance before. When you do this part over here, point the burr this direction. Not facial lingually. Point the burr tangent to the corner of the adjacent tooth toward the center. Follow the center groove, come out the facial groove. But now we have a facial groove to come out. From this side we have a facial groove that we can come out. From this side we have a facial groove that we can come out. Then come down here. Come down here to the distal facial groove, and then come down the distal cusp. Plane 1, plane 2, plane 3, all with the burr pointing in the right direction. All with the burr at the right vertical angle. That has to be. Okay? So, vertical angle, direction of the burr, those are the key things that you've got to get. Okay? Okay, now on the B plane, since you made it horizontal to begin with, it's way over reduced right now, but, you know, at least we're getting the idea about the anatomy. So go ahead and come back through here and do both sides of the distal lingual cusp, and then I'm going to get some material that you guys can use to check the clearance. But do the plane down here. Don't forget to bring the end of the burr out these grooves. Okay? And then down here to the marginal ridge, down here and out the groove. That's why we do those planes. That's why we get a well-defined ridge. When you define the ridge well, then you can use indirect methods to make sure it's in the right place. Okay? All right, so I'm going to get some stuff to use for that. So a couple of things to see on the occlusal reduction here. One is, you see this ridge?
Yes.
It should be pointing this direction. So
Yeah,
that,
actually I did before, and then you told me to.
yeah, so you've got a groove right about where the ridge should be. So point the burr tangent to the corner toward the center. Then you make the plane and you bring the end of the burr out the facial groove right there. Then come down here with the burr pointing the same direction into the distal facial groove. Then come down here. But for those three planes, it's always pointing in the same direction. And over here, as close as you can to the adjacent tooth, and then down here, and then bring the end of the burr out the facial groove again, right here. So then you can use the mirror and look up through there and see if you have enough clearance on both sides of that. And we might here. You can try to put the ball burnisher through there, but we have more hope now that we have this ridge in the right position and a more definite facial groove, and then both sides of that ridge like this. Now, the direction of that ridge makes it much easier to make these planes here. There are two planes here. There's one that comes down this way and out the lingual groove. Okay? You went back and forth between the ridges. That you don't want to do. Down this ridge and out the groove. Down this ridge to the marginal ridge. Down this ridge, out the groove. Down this ridge to the marginal ridge. That's how you get that ridge there. And then we can check with the bite wax to see if you have enough clearance, because we can't really see any other way. So we're going to blow the dust off first. So in this case, we're not actually going to use bite wax. We're going to use this impression material. And we're going to close it down. Make sure we have good occlusion on the other teeth. So we know we have the typodont closed into the vertical stop. So the same occlusion that you had before, then we're going to make sure we have. And we're going to give it a little time for it to set. This is not a really fast setting bite registration material, which we're going to be using. So I've taken it off, and so there's the prep. There's the distal lingual cusp. Let me turn off my headlight. Okay, so as we said before, there's the distal lingual cusp. So it looks like there's more clearance on the mesial side of it than on the distal side of it, which is a little bit unusual. And we're really not quite calibrated, but obviously when this material gets really thin, it gets pretty white, doesn't it? So the distal lingual cusp looks like it might have enough clearance, but we don't know for sure. But we can just check, since we're getting calibrated with this material. We could look this way, just take it out just to learn. Look through here. Okay, well, on the distal lingual cusp, on the distal side of it, definitely not enough clearance. On the mesial side, it needs to do a little bit more. On the distal side, definitely not enough clearance. You have more on the mesial side. I'd probably reduce more on the mesial side, but a lot more on the distal side. And that seems to be something that we saw here. Oops. Okay. Thanks. Okay, so let me see. So here's the distal lingual cusp. This is the distal cusp. We haven't really reduced that much yet at all, except for by the B plane. But so this is not enough clearance. That color corresponds to about 0.5 millimeter clearance. So it better look more like this, even a little bit darker than that, so you know you've got things looking good. Okay. It also suggests that on this ridge here for the distal buccal part of the B plane, we might be a little bit under reduced. So that would be right here. And yeah, the ball burnisher doesn't fit through there. So we definitely need to do some more reduction down this ridge right here. But again, point the burr in this direction. And then do these 3 planes. Okay. And so, yeah, and then do more reduction on the distal side over here.
Okay.
And then check it again and see how it comes out. Okay. Wax is a lot easier to use than this material, though, so we might go back to using wax today, like I showed on the video. Okay? All right, give that a try. So let's make a ridge here, because we want that ridge to be exactly in the opposing groove, right? So the more well-defined the ridge is, the easier it is to see where it fits. So you're going to make a flat plane down this way. Don't forget to bring the end of the burr out the lingual groove, and then a flat plane down this way. Both sides make flat planes, and then you get a ridge. Same thing over here. Come down this way, right up against the adjacent tooth, then come down this way, and bring the end of the burr out the groove. Flat plane out the groove, flat plane to the marginal ridge, flat plane out the groove, flat plane to the marginal ridge. Now, so we got this 1, 2, and 3 about where they need to be. Okay. So let's see. Your clearance right now is you got lots of it, don't you? So for the distal lingual, I'm sure you have plenty of clearance as well. We'd want to check it with the wax. So
I checked and it is adequate.
did you check it?
Yes.
Okay, well, I don't see that. Okay, so here's the deal. Now, if you have a super amount of clearance, the wax won't fill the space between the teeth, so that maybe that's the issue. But let's get rid of this part right here. But make sure that you have the right occlusion on the other teeth before you take the wax out. So we're getting more of the prep surface into the wax now. I should have blown more of the dust off. You don't want dust to get in the wax. But anyway. Okay, so it certainly looks like you have enough clearance. You might reduce a little bit more on the mesial side of the distal lingual groove. It's a little bit lighter right there. But then again, if we have a groove that's well defined, it's easier to see where we are, right? So get those planes defined well, so the ridges are defined well. So I could do a little more reduction right down in this area right here. Okay, so you can take the typonauts out and then see if when you check it directly that it is the way you think. All right. We will do the upper prep in just a few minutes. Okay. Okay, so you have a distal lingual ridge. So the clearances look pretty good as far as I can see by eye for the A and the B planes. So do you have wax for this? Okay. So again, blow the dust off the prep so that it doesn't get stuck in the wax. Let's take a look. Okay, let's see. And so if you mark some ridges first. I think this is the distal lingual over here. It's just almost off the edge of the wax. But it certainly looks dark enough as far as we can tell. You normally want to check it. The best time to check clearance is before you have enough.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
Anyway, I suspect you do have enough clearance there, so you can take it out and then check it. But the basic anatomy is pretty close. You'd want to have this ridge pointing a little more this direction and come down a little bit closer to the adjacent tooth when you come down here. Make flat plane right down here and then a flat plane and bring the end of the burr out that groove. You have a very well-defined lingual groove from both directions. Flat plane here, bring the end of the burr out the facial groove. But you got things pretty close. All right, so we're going to move on to the upper one in just a few minutes. Okay. Okay, so obviously tons of clearance on the A and the B plane, and yeah, so the distal lingual's not real well defined. So let's make more of a ridge here. So come down this way, and don't forget to bring the end of the burr neatly out that lingual groove, and then come down this way. So one plane here, and you get a much better defined ridge. Same thing over here, all the way to the adjacent tooth, and then down here and out the groove. That gives nice flat planes, which gives well-defined ridges, which means it's a lot easier to see on the wax or however you're checking it if you have the right clearance, if you have some nice anatomy. This ridge, of course, should have been pointing this direction, right?
Yeah.
So we talked about that before. All right, so we'll move on to the upper arch in just a few minutes. Okay. In the meanwhile, by the way, you guys can go ahead and get started on your axial reduction. So just take your 878K014 and do the facial lingual reductions the way I described. Okay. All right, so your A plane looks pretty good. B plane a little over-reduced on the mesial side, but the distal side looks like it's probably okay. And again, the direction of that ridge on the distal buccal, yeah, I would typically have put it more like this. So you're close, but the more diagonally right toward the center, the better off you're going to be. Okay, so you're getting a well-defined ridge over here. This ridge should be a little bit staying over on the mesial side. You're not reducing this cusp very much yet. So you get a full millimeter of reduction. Come down, flat plane out this groove, flat plane to the marginal ridge, flat plane out this groove, flat plane to the marginal ridge. The lingual cusp should be about the same height. If you've got clearance here on the distal, make sure this cusp is about the same height as that one. Still need to reduce more. Likely. Did you check the clearance on the distal lingual with the wax? I guess you did. Okay, so we're looking for this, the clearance, the color of the wax on both sides of that ridge. Clearly I need to reduce the mesial lingual cusp more, a full millimeter right off that cusp on both sides. Okay. All right, so you doubled it over. On this wax, you didn't really have to do that. But let's see, so you had it like this. So look, see, you haven't really closed down all the way. The rest of the teeth aren't in occlusion. Okay, so what you want to do is, and this wax is actually a little more than 1.5 millimeters thick, so it's thick enough. But want to get another piece? So let's just mark this ridge. If we have a well-defined ridge, then let's mark it. Then the wax will pick up that. But squeeze it down hard until you see that the other teeth are in the correct occlusion. Then you can take it out. Try not to distort it too much when you take it out. And it looks like you got plenty of clearance on the distal lingual cusp. The wax isn't too light on either side. Did you see it on the monitor? Okay. And then, of course, we can double check to see how we did. So take it out and look through here, and we've got more than 1 millimeter clearance on both sides. It's a little tight in one little tiny area, right about here.
Okay.
Otherwise, you got plenty of clearance. Okay, so yeah, you don't need to double up on the wax.
Okay.
So it's really hard to squeeze all the way through all that wax.